Now in this video, I want to talk about what to do if you fall really far behind in university, in school. And I want to talk about this because it was a super common occurrence for me. What would happen is I would like have a week where I kind of messed around and did nothing, right? And then the next week I would be a week behind. And then it would be like a constant treadmill where I would constantly be trying to catch up and I would be falling further and further behind. And it got to the point where I was so far behind, I had like such a high mountain to climb, so much work to do to catch up, that I didn't even sit down and study to catch up because I knew there was just so much to do that what was the point of sitting down and studying for 2 hours? There was no point, right? Because it wouldn't even make a dent to the amount of work that I had ahead of me. So I would freeze and I would literally do nothing. I would spend like another week wasting time, and then next thing I know, I would be even further behind. I want to talk about what to do when you're in a situation like this. Hopefully I can give you some tips that will help you get out of this and feel better about the situation you're in. I would literally be scrolling on my phone and I would know that I just had to get down and study because I was so far behind. But I wouldn't even move. I would just keep scrolling on my phone. So how do you deal with this? First of all, you just need to focus on what you can control. Now, I know it's easier said than done, bro. Like, when you go through a breakup with a girl and it's like, there's plenty of fish in the sea, man. Like, don't worry about it. Logically, it's true, but deep down, you're still like stressing. You're still in pain. It's kind of like that where it's like, okay, bro, focus on what you can control. Yeah, sure, it would be ideal if you could go back a week and catch up then. But right now, you're behind. You've made decisions that have got you to this point. Focus on what you can control. And it's true, and if I can give you some hope, I have saved multiple subjects from points when I thought I was screwed. Like there was a subject 2 years ago. Actually, there was a subject last year. I had to study like the whole semester in like a couple days, and I managed to clutch and do it. There are plenty of times where I managed to literally cram and study for an exam. If you want to learn how to cram for an exam, go watch my video, how I cram for exams or whatever. I'm going to talk about a couple different things here, but focus on what you can control. That's the first thing. The problem right now is that you have a lack of clarity. Basically, there's a mountain ahead of you of work that you have to do, but you don't know where to start. You're like, do I start with this? Do I start with this? You don't know what exact task to do. If you could input your semester into an AI program and it spit out the exact thing that you should do today to get started, you would go do it. So it's actually mostly just a matter of clarity. If you can gain clarity of what exactly you need to do to catch up, the exact steps you need to take, you're probably going to be much more likely to take action. What I would do if I got to this point where I was like so far behind is I would freeze. I would stop for a second, like not freeze, like don't study, but I would stop and I would look at what I had left to do, what was ahead of me. And I would just gain clarity and break it down into what I could do today and what steps I had to take to be able to do this. Basically, once you start actually chipping away at that mountain and like day by day working on those tasks, you start building some momentum and you get into the point where it becomes easy because you're pushing forward, you're clearing through, and the momentum will keep you pushing. Like I talk about in my other videos, how to build a study habit, but this is kind of similar. You're building momentum, but you're going to have a lot more fuel behind you because you're going to be like urgently getting this stuff done. So the fuel is going to push you. You just need to get started. And basically, it's like a car accelerating. Once you start pushing that car forward, it's going to accelerate and go full speed. But either you can start accelerating today or you can start accelerating in a week. Like sure, today, 1 hour is not going to make a dent in the long run. But that hour will allow you to start the momentum going. And within a week, you'll be like 10 hours ahead, 20 hours ahead. So you just need to start. That's the thing. So gain some clarity, basically. I'll tell you how exactly to gain clarity here. You're facing the mountain and okay, bro, I got to do this essay. I got to prepare for this exam next month. You're facing the mountain. You've told yourself a million times, go study, but you're not starting. Because you need to know what that first step is. You need to know what step you need to take on your mountain. What you need to do is you need to prioritize. Basically, there are multiple things you can do right now. Maybe you've got let me give you an example. Semester 1, year 1, I don't know why, but I'll bring this example. I was super far behind. It was exam season. I had to study for like 4 different subjects and I was faced with this exact situation. So first you need to prioritize. There were 4 subjects I could have done. And in each of those 4 subjects, there were like 12 weeks that I could have studied. So 12 times 4, there was 48 different ways I could enter into this subject and start studying. So how do you pick where to start? If you know where to start, it becomes much more clear. Things become easier. If you have the exact path where it's like, okay, today I'm doing this, then this, then this, then this. First of all, you need to realize that to an extent, exam timetables, exam schedules are very much overrated because you don't exactly know how long it's going to take to do things. So a better approach, at least that I did, is to find what your priority is for the next couple days and to make a rough plan. So what I did was, basically I knew that Calculus 2 was the subject I was the most behind in. So I think I had about 10 days to do two subjects. And I was like, okay, first 5 days, I'm going to try to get Calculus 2 studied well. And then the few days after that, I'm going to do Foundations of Computing. So my priority was Calculus because I was the furthest behind in it. And it was the exam that was first. So for me, it was like a clear priority. So there's going to be one subject for you that's going to be a clear priority. Maybe the assessment is closer. Maybe you're furthest behind. You're going to be tempted to do the easier subject because it's easy. But that's not a priority right now, so you can do that later. So focus on that priority subject, and within that priority subject, there's going to be a priority thing you can work on. So I'll speak about this briefly because I talked about it in the video, how I cram for exams or whatever. But there's going to be some topics that are going to be worth more in the exam than others. If you're doing an essay, there's going to be certain parts of the essay that are going to be worth more than others. What you do is you start with the exam paper, with the final past paper, and you look at those past papers and see which subjects are worth more, which topics are worth more, and you study those, and you study them to do the past papers. So again, in all my videos, I talk about how testing is one of the best ways to learn. If possible, just spam past papers at this point. Just get papers done and you'll learn a lot more. So you want to be adapting with these priorities. Like after 3 days, you might make a ton of progress in calculus where you get to the point where you're going to do pretty well. And then maybe it'll switch around and computing becomes your priority. So be adaptive every single day, change your priorities. It's like in medicine, there's a concept of a triage where it's like basically they look at all the patients and they pick which patient desperately needs the most help right now. And they let the other ones figure them out later. So basically, at first, when you start studying a subject, you're going to get huge gains. If you learn the topic that's going to be the biggest weight on the exam, you're going to make a ton of gains. But as you get better and better and better in the subject, each individual amount of study will be worth less and less. So in engineering subjects, going from like 50% to 60% is relatively simple. But going from like 80% to 90% is very, very difficult. You need to have a super in-depth understanding of the subject. So the better you get at a subject, the more it might be better for you to start focusing on a different subject. So this is the idea of like diminishing returns, where the better you get at a subject, the more you can kind of focus on something else, if that makes sense. So you need to be adaptive when you choose which subject to make your priority, if that makes sense. So many people ask me this question, like, should they focus on one subject at a time? You spend a few days on one subject, or should they do one subject before lunch and then one subject after lunch? I've thought about this for a while and I don't have an exact answer. I can just tell you what I like to do. Me personally, I like to focus all in on one subject at a time. I like to go very, very deep into one subject, build that momentum, get those like compounding gains, and just put all my attention to one subject. Because when you're not studying, your brain is still thinking about the subject. I used to go to sleep and have physics dreams because I was going all in on physics at a time. So like I said with that example earlier, I went full-time on calculus for 5 days and then full-time on computing for 3 days. Now, bit of a side note, I actually got sick when it came time to studying for computing, so I didn't do it to the best of my ability. That's a side note though, I don't know why I mentioned that, but basically, yeah, so it's up to you if you want to multitask and do multiple subjects. I prefer to go all in on a subject, but like I said earlier, the priorities in the subject's going to change. So you might be super far behind in calculus and you might want to study calculus until a different subject becomes a priority. Like maybe you get so good at it that the next subject that you're bad at, you need to work on, and that exam might be soon. And so you got to be adaptive to your priorities, like I said. So like I said, the reason you're not sitting down and catching up on this stuff, and if you don't take this advice, in a week, you're going to be another week behind. But the reason you're doing that is because it's so overwhelming. You don't want to face the mountain. It's so scary that you'd rather like go on your phone or watch Netflix or something. Like, I learned that the reason procrastination happens is because you're avoiding some kind of negative emotion. So maybe the past week, this backlog that you have has gotten even bigger because you've been too scared to face the mountain and start working. So right now, your biggest obstacle is to literally just face the mountain, gain clarity in what you have to do, yeah, you have to get started, but first you need to have the bravery to face the mountain. So actually, if for the next hour you sit down and you stare at your wall and you think about what you need to do, that's actually going to be better progress than sitting down and going on your phone for an hour. So the actionable step I can tell you in this video is, sure, take what I said, use what I said, but the most important thing right now is that you literally just face the work ahead of you. So if possible, literally just go sit down on your chair and stare at your wall for an hour. That will actually help you a lot more. Because don't get to the point where you're like thinking about what I said in this video and you're like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do it. And then you go watch another video or something. So what you want to do is, like I said, plan what's ahead of you, plan what you're going to do next, roughly plan what you're going to do over the next week or so. But that's a pretty hard thing to do because you're facing the mountain ahead of you. So at least first step, go stare at your wall. Go do nothing. Doing nothing is better than what you've been doing for the past few weeks, which is like, distracting yourself. So just stop distracting yourself. Face your wall, and you're going to be so bored. You're going to have a realization where you're like, bro, I got to start doing some study. And you probably didn't need me to tell you any of the stuff in this video, to be honest. You could have probably figured it out on your own. You probably could have figured out on your own that you had a maths test next week and you had to sit down and begin studying. You didn't need me to tell you that. You didn't need me to tell you that you need to start catching up now. You just need to realize it on your own, because the problem is you're just so distracted that you're not even facing the work ahead of you. That's what I can tell you. The fact that you found this video, you were probably on YouTube before this. So the thing I can tell you, the actionable step, just, get off this video and just, stare at your wall. Just come up with a plan on your own. You will be so bored, you'll come up with a plan. So that's it. Go stare at your wall. If you want me to help you build a study habit, and you want me to help you very intensely, keep you accountable and everything, and actually help you get good grades very, very fast, or help you develop this deep work skill and become a master studier, a master focuser, check out the first thing in the description. But apart from that, go stare at your wall, go face the work ahead of you. See you later.